Bruce Willis is one of the most famous actors in Hollywood. Back in the day, when the grass was greener and the water wetter, his presence in any film's cast was a sign that it was worth watching. Even if the film wasn't particularly good, it was still watchable and didn't do any harm to the viewer. Toward the end of his career, this once brilliant actor seemed to be doing everything possible to fade into obscurity. His legendary past started to feel like a distant dream, one that didn't even belong to him. Bruce Willis isn't the only one whose career took a dramatic downturn. Many others in the industry followed a similar path, so he wasn't alone in his epic freefall to rock bottom. Nicolas Cage is heading the same way, and he's the undisputed champion of the cinematic nosedive. It's hard to say why once respectable figures can't just enjoy retirement like Gene Hackman or Sean Connery did, instead of starring in trashy films. Maybe they just can't let go of the mansions and yachts, which are expensive to maintain. Or maybe they're deep in debt. Whatever the reason, it's all pretty sad. And while some people may feel sorry for them, that doesn't make watching their new movies any easier. Today, let's talk about Bruce Willis's career path and take a closer look at a few key moments. Like many big Hollywood stars, Bruce Willis was never exactly a sweetheart. He started showing his temper early in his career. Back then, people tended to blame it on the stars being out of alignment or someone else. Anyone but Bruce Willis. For example, they blamed actress Cybill Shepherd, his co-star on Moonlighting. It was that series that brought him fame and ultimately landed him his role in Die Hard. There's a popular belief that Bruce Willis was a complete nobody when he landed the lead in Die Hard, but that's far from the truth. The only reason producers were hesitant to cast him as John McClane was because of his image as a comedy actor. In the 1980s, Moonlighting was one of the most expensive shows on TV. Possibly the most expensive, according to some sources. Each episode cost $1.5 to $2 million to make. A full season cost the network $35 to $40 million. That's more than the budgets of Star Wars or Indiana Jones movies released at the time. And conflicts on the Moonlighting set were common. Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepherd couldn't stand each other. Unlike Shepherd, Willis was a complete unknown at the time, so he had to stay in her shadow while she got all the praise. But with each new season, his paycheck and fame grew. Eventually, he stepped out of that shadow. After Die Hard hit theaters, everything changed. Nothing was holding him back anymore, and Willis started throwing his weight around. He blamed Shepherd for all the issues the show faced during production. Most likely, it was the showrunner who started the conflict. Cybill Shepherd and the ABC network wanted Harley Vinton for the lead male role. But showrunner Glenn Gordon Caron was so impressed by Bruce Willis during auditions that he ignored their request and gave the part to the then unknown actor. Shepherd was furious, and that set the tone for their tense relationship. Reports say the show was originally planned to run for 6 or even 7 seasons, but once Bruce Willis's film career took off after Die Hard, he began refusing to film. Willis said he was simply tired of Shepherd constantly being late, which dragged out shoots and forced him to work for months without a day off. Since he had to juggle both TV and film, he decided it was time to choose. However, rumors claimed Willis often threw tantrums during the final season, which also caused delays. So Shepherd wasn't the only one to blame. After the first Die Hard was released, Willis's ego started getting out of control. He no longer respected any authority. It became impossible to predict whether a movie's production would go smoothly or end in disaster. Clashes with actors and directors became routine. It's surprising he didn't throw a fit during Die Hard 2, especially since he openly said he hated the movie multiple times. Maybe it was because the studio let him do whatever he wanted, and director Renny Harlin stayed out of his way. But Hudson Hawk, which followed Die Hard 2, wasn't so lucky. Many of the cast members described the shoot as the worst days of their lives, despite starting out on a good note. Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello were close friends and had been wanting to star in a movie together for years. So when Willis received the Hudson Hawk script, the role of Tommy immediately went to Aiello. He even turned down another film he'd already committed to in order to do Hudson Hawk. Willis and producer Joel Silver chose the director together. They were so impressed by Heathers, starring Christian Slater and Winona Ryder, that they invited Michael Lehman to direct. Critics of Hudson Hawk often cite that decision as a major mistake. Lehman only had 2 small films under his belt and wasn't prepared to handle pressure from a powerful producer and an even more powerful lead actor. A more seasoned director might have stood their ground and pushed back when needed, which could have benefited the film. When filming began, Bruce Willis took on the roles of screenwriter and director in everything but name. Joel Silver is one of those producers who tends to defer to his lead stars, giving them nearly full control on set. In movies like Predator, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, or 48 Hours, that improvisational, freewheeling approach worked, but on the set of Hudson Hawk, it led to disaster. Bruce Willis made so many changes to the original script that he ended up being credited as one of the screenwriters. Because of the constant on-the-fly changes he made to the plot, some of the expensive sets built in advance in Budapest were never used. While a few were eventually worked into the film's new ending, most were donated to the Leonardo da Vinci Museum in Milan. Director Michael Lehmann occasionally tried to speak up, but Willis would immediately cause a scene, and the producers would ask Lehmann not to get in the star's way. Actor Richard Grant, who lost his role in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves due to Willis stalling the production, called Hudson Hawk a stinking pile of donkey shit. But after the movie flopped and won a Golden Raspberry for Worst Screenplay, Willis blamed the studio. According to him, it was their fault for marketing the movie as an action comedy when it was really just a comedy, leaving audiences and critics confused and disappointed. Producer Joel Silver backed Willis, which is ironic considering their fallout on Willis's next film, The Last Boy Scout. We've already talked about that one. Willis didn't learn much from the Hudson Hawk or Last Boy Scout debacles, though he did take a break for one film. The production of Death Becomes Her went smoothly, but that film was directed by the highly respected Robert Zemeckis, and Bruce only joined the cast at the very last minute due to a scheduling gap. He spent less than a month on set. Things spiraled again on his next project, the thriller Striking Distance. Directed by Rowdy Herrington, the film ended up facing similar issues to Hudson Hawk. Willis began rewriting the script to the point where early test screenings at Sony were a disaster. According to studio executives, audiences hated it. The movie, originally titled Three Rivers, was described as Hudson Hawk with all the humor removed. The studio panicked and ordered costly reshoots, essentially remaking the entire film. Willis was so furious about returning that he barely put effort into his performance and often lashed out at Herrington. But according to people on set, Willis had been treating Herrington poorly from day one. He frequently took over directing and ignored instructions. At the time, the film's issues were widely covered in the press. Herrington defended Willis in interviews, calling him a true professional. But Willis blamed Herrington for everything. During the reshoots, the filmmakers added intimate scenes, removed most of the dialogue, and introduced action-heavy water sequences. The film went through several more edits, and one version finally hit theaters. Like Hudson Hawk, the movie flopped. Herrington's career basically ended, while Willis decided to tone things down. For nearly 3 years, there were no major scandals surrounding his behavior. During that stretch, he released 4 films, and only one bombed, the erotic thriller Color of Night. Around that time, Willis turned down the lead role in Speed. Unlike many actors who passed on the script immediately, Willis actually showed interest and had discussions with director Jean de Bont. We'll never know what Speed would have looked like with Willis in the lead, but then Quentin Tarantino came along with Pulp Fiction. When Mickey Rourke declined a role, Tarantino offered it to Willis. Bruce liked the role and quickly walked away from Speed. After a 3-year break from on-set chaos, Willis reverted to his old habits during Last Man Standing. According to director Walter Hill, there wasn't an outright conflict, but Willis constantly challenged every decision and tried to rewrite his character. At the time, Hill was a Hollywood heavyweight, known for 48 Hours, Red Heat, Brewster's Millions, and producing franchises like Alien and Tales from the Crypt. So Willis couldn't push him out of the director's chair like he had with others. Surprisingly, Willis didn't cause any trouble during The Fifth Element. His only complaint was the absurd wardrobe. Otherwise, filming Luc Besson's sci-fi epic went smoothly, but then things fell apart again. Richard Gere, his co-star in The Jackal, took the brunt. Bruce and Gere couldn't get along, and their time on set together was a nightmare for producers. Fortunately, the film was shot in a way that let them avoid sharing scenes. Afterward, they trashed each other in interviews and vowed never to work together again. Apparently, The Jackal finally snapped something in Willis. He ended up sabotaging his next project outright. Even though filming was already underway, he quit. The fallout led Disney to lock him into a 3-picture deal as a form of punishment, forcing him to work with Michael Bay. It's wild to imagine what might have happened if Willis had willingly teamed up with Bay, who's known for being tough on actors. On the set of Armageddon, things could have exploded, literally and figuratively. But because Willis was under contractual obligation and facing massive penalties, he endured it. He later told the press he'd never work with Bay again. Armageddon and The Sixth Sense, which Willis joined reluctantly, became his last major box office hits. In the early 2000s, 2 out of every 3 films he made flopped. The only exception was Die Hard 4, though its box office numbers were lower than the first 3 films. The movie even dropped its R rating, which likely increased its chances of failure. Willis's last known behind-the-scenes blow-up happened on Cop Out in 2010. Kevin Smith, the director behind Clerks and Dogma, usually avoided working with major studios due to creative interference. But he made an exception for Cop Out. He loved the script and was thrilled to work with Bruce Willis, his childhood hero ever since seeing Die Hard at 17. Smith had previously worked with Willis on Die Hard 4, where he had a small role. There, Willis rejected some of Smith's ideas, but Smith took it in stride. Cop Out was different. This was Smith's film, and he personally cast everyone except Bruce Willis, who was brought in by Warner Brothers. According to Smith, things went downhill from day one. Bruce hated the script and refused to stick to his lines. At first, Smith thought it was just typical Hollywood improvisation, but when Willis stayed silent during scenes, Smith asked him to follow the script. That's when the conflict exploded. Willis started yelling, saying he was Bruce Willis, while Smith was just some nobody director. According to witnesses, Willis even tried to hit Smith, but was pulled away just in time. From then on, Willis criticized every one of Smith's decisions, rewrote lines, walked off set, and even complained about the choice of camera lenses. When he found out Smith didn't know much about cameras, he began openly mocking him. Later, Smith blamed Cop Out's box office failure on Willis. According to the director, he had to cut nearly 80% of the film, partly because Willis ruined scenes, and partly because the story no longer made sense after all the changes. Willis, of course, saw it differently. He blamed the flop on Smith, calling him an incompetent director and criticizing him for frequently smoking weed on set. Smith later described Cop Out as a soul-crushing experience and called Willis the unhappiest, most bitter, and meanest person he'd ever met. It's hard to say what exactly set Willis off. Maybe it was the weed, though that didn't seem to bother him on Pulp Fiction. But after Cop Out, Bruce finally transformed into the version we all now remember. After the failures of Red 2 and A Good Day to Die Hard, he moved on to extremely low-budget, direct-to-video projects. He started appearing in 5 or 6 of these movies every year. Often, he didn't even play the lead, he just popped in for a few minutes. Rumor has it those short appearances paid as much as his old lead roles. And since making 5 Red 2 level films a year is impossible due to time, he actually made more money starring in garbage like Vice or Precious Cargo. It's likely the only reason he agreed to do Glass was because the shoot lasted just over a month, and he was only on set for 2 weeks. After Glass, Bruce went right back to his usual grind, starring in tons of forgettable films, most of which scored around 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and stay tuned.